Hello and welcome to Sound Heal Podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Brown, and thank you so much for joining me as we continue to explore the field of sound healing, sound therapy, and generally the use of sound for health and wellness. Today, our guest is Ashana. Ashana is one of the premier healing music artists and vocalists of our time, really a pioneer of healing music with the voice and crystal bowls. She's also a best-selling author of the book Crystal Singing Bowls, The Angelic Sound of Healing, Relaxation, and Spiritual Awakening, and a lifelong student of yoga, mantra, and she's also trained students from all over the world when it comes to using sound, crystal bowls, and healing modalities. We have really just an in the flow conversation about crystal bowls, the sound healing world, how it's evolved, perhaps some misconceptions when it comes to sound healing and in particular crystal singing bowls, and just a really insightful conversation. And she brings so much light. She was very generous to offer us a gift, meditation on the golden light of healing, and award-winning meditation. So we talk a bit about that at the end of this episode, but you'll find the link to that gift that you can listen to in the show notes wherever you're listening or watching this podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Om Shop and Spa, located in Sarasota, Florida. The Om Shop has a vast array of vibrational tools and is the country's largest showroom of crystal bowls, gongs, tuning forks, Himalayan bowls, and custom quality instruments as well. So if you're looking to up-level your sound healing tools, definitely check out the omshop.com or visit them in person in Sarasota, Florida if you can. They have a luxury spa and trainings, workshops as well. So thank you so much to the Om Shop for their support and sponsorship of this podcast. Please enjoy this episode with Ashana. Great. Well, Ashana, it is an honor. Welcome to this podcast. Great to have you.
Thank you, Natalie. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
So you are, you've really been led to this path. It's so amazing to learn about your journey and everything that led you to clearly what you're supposed to do. So I wondered, for those that don't know your background, if you could let us know a little bit about your start into music, your training, before what you got into, but a little bit about your background and the highlights of that.
Well, I pretty much started singing when I was about 2 or 3. It was just something that was part of my self-soothing, I think. And I came into it, probably drove my mother crazy because I was always making sound. And I wanted to sing. I wanted to play instruments from a very, very early age. So I did do that. Started with piano and then guitar, and of course instruments in school, exploring recorder. I played the violin. It was not my favorite, I have to tell you, because all I wanted to do was sing. So I went to a specialized school in New York City for a specialized program in music in my high school in New York City, and then eventually went to conservatory. So I graduated from the Mannes College of Music with a Bachelor of Music in vocal performance, and then began singing uh, just about in everywhere I could grab my hands onto it. Involved in a lot of early music, a lot of opera, a lot of musical theater. Um, I I kind of was like a chameleon for the longest time, but I specialized in early music and also in theater, and opened myself for many, many years just in an exploratory state. I was also writing and composing. I started writing songs when I was 10 or 11. I still have those books with those songs in them and the guitar chords. I can still remember them. and continue to do that, and just evolved in many, many different ways as my career opened, as my the deepening inside of myself. So I did do several opera apprentice programs with the Banff Festival and the Blossom Festival, and in New York City, in off Broadway, off Broadway, that kind of those kinds of scenarios. Eventually, I moved out of New York and came to Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I made my home for about 17 years. And I was kind of deep diving into, by that point in time, I was deep diving into spirituality and personal transformation. I'd started yoga in 1980. And I started going further inside of myself. And, you got to remember, like, back in the 80s, sound healing didn't exist. It just wasn't. It nobody talked about it. Nobody, when I can remember the first time somebody used the word sound bath to me and I laughed. I thought it was ridiculous. I was like, what? It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me. I wasn't even thinking in terms of sound and vibrational healing at that point in time. But someone a mentor of mine had called me and said, have you ever heard of crystal singing bowls? And this was like 1998, 98 or 99. And I said, no. And she said, these are absolutely up your alley and you should look in this direction. So I did. I literally ordered one sight unseen. And of course, there was only a couple of companies that made them at that point in time, and these were the cast-offs from the semiconductor industry. That this, and in fact, I know scientists in the Los Alamos National Laboratories that use crystal singing bowls in their work. So I actually know that as part of the evolution of the instruments. So I brought one in, and literally the minute I took it out of the box and tapped the side of the bowl, I was mesmerized. I tell this story all the time, so some of your listeners who have heard me speak before have heard it, but I say that the first thought in my mind was that light had come to live in my house. And it was this place of astonishment that such a light would come to live with me. And the very next thought I had was, instantly, one day I'm going to put these into music. And 3 weeks later, I had 7, and now I'm sitting in a room with 115. These are my personal instruments, which I I kind of go, oh my God, really? I'm a bowl hoarder. It's very, very obvious, and actually instrument hoarder too, because what you don't see are the therapy harps and the drums and the whole set of tuning forks, and it's just this accumulation of creation with beautiful sound. So that pretty much was my start, and in 2005, I met my producer, um, Thomas Barkey, and he and I uh, had a pretty instantaneous connection, and we've been working together ever since. So probably what, 17, 18, 19, 17 years of doing recordings together, and the depth of his understanding of sound and vibrational healing, mantra, chant, his finesse recording the bowls was, in some ways continues to be unparalleled, and in the industry. So yeah, that's pretty much. And it's just been this evolution. It's continuous. It's a continuous evolution as I grow and evolve in my own awareness, in the deepening inside of myself, growing as a human, and growing as a human in relationship with frequency, vibration, and sound.
Hmm, that's beautiful. I think that I don't know if it's 50% or what percentage of people that get into this work using sound for wellness, for meditation, are musicians previously, or not. I don't really know what the percentage is, but I'm just kind of curious as a classically trained, as a performer, as kind of a specialist in early music, just kind of considering that part of you
Yeah.
and then the transition into this type of music. Um, what is the difference in that type of performance, or where does it come from in you being a performer on a stage, singing something classical versus healing music, I guess you would call it, or is it all healing music?
It's all
Is all
healing,
music healing? Yeah,
healing music.
yeah,
No, my experience in, to kind of go back to your percentage questions, what I'm finding is that the majority of people that come to sound healing are not musicians, and they are healers, people interested or dedicated to expanding their um, their gifts and their work in their healing, in the use of their healing modalities. So I've been teaching crystal singing bowls and the application of crystalline sound to sound healing and to other healing modalities for many, 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 many years. I have my own program in that, and I would have to say 80% of the people that come in there are yoga teachers, Reiki people, meditation teachers, mindfulness teachers. And then there's probably about 30% that come into my program that they just want this for themselves. They're not interested in sharing it with anybody. They've either been to a sound bath, or they've heard my music, or they've connected with the singing bowls in some way, shape, or form inside their world. And they go, I need this. This is good for me. I'm in. I don't care. I'm and then eventually, the beautiful thing is eventually is they almost always start sharing it with other people. That really happens. And then there's about 20 to 25% um, that are professional musicians. And I'm having more professional musicians come to me now, but it's still the smallest amount, quite frankly.
yeah. That does make sense. And it is such a need that what's beautiful about it is wherever you're coming from, it can be accessible to
Yes,
you, right? You
yeah,
don't have to
that is
have
that.
that musical background. Yeah.
Well, you don't. And those who have a musical background, this is my experience, have a far greater impact in their work. So, there are pieces that are inherent in developing and evolving as a musician that are critical to sound healing. And of course, that I know you know this, but the original healers were all musicians. They were the musicians in the tribe, the musicians in the culture, and the musicians were considered the healers. So, uh, I think there's been a tremendous disconnect in our culture, uh, where musicians evolved along a path. And I'm talking about Western culture as opposed to like Indian culture, East Indian culture, or native cultures. But the Western cultures, there was this refinement of technical skill and precision. And then, of course, as the technical skills became more and more demanding, and we had composers writing, things became you needed that level of skill set to create these exquisite pieces, symphonies and operas and oratorios and cantatas and, all of that came out. And so, musicians kind of began walking a path that really emphasized technical skill and technical expertise. But there are also skill sets and disciplines of learning and studying that are tremendously helpful when you're doing sound healing. And those that come to sound healing that don't have that, in some ways they're at a disadvantage. I would say they have a bigger learning curve. At the same time, those people who come to sound healing from a healing perspective, a self-inquiry perspective, they have a certain skill set that is really powerful and valuable that, perhaps the average musician doesn't have. So I like to look at it as a Vesica Pisces, really. I really like to say, and I teach my students this too. It's like, here you are. Here's your musician side, or the musician. Here's the healer. When we go like this, now we have really impactful sound healing. So there are skill sets that are needed on both sides and brought to the table. So it's an interesting time to be in sound healing, where, we have the separation of the healers from the musicians, and it is now this opportunity for the coming back together of that. Because most healers that come to me will speak of a deep longing inside of themselves to their connection with music that often was um, denied. And so coming into a relationship with sound healing through the simplicity of playing a bowl, because a bowl is a very, on the surface, and I do say this, on the surface, a crystal singing bowl is a very simple instrument to play on the surface. To play in depth, I believe that's another story. But on the surface, it's simple. So we can approach that instrument. It's a very easy way in. The same thing with drumming and drum circles. It's an easy way in. Trying to think of other instruments that, like a therapy harp is a very easy way in. A lap harp, a zither, chimes, little percussion instruments like that. The non-trained or beginning music hobbyist, right? Because it's, we all start at that place, has a very gentle entry point. And so it allows for the experience of sound healing to grow in a very organic and easeful way.
Yeah, just beautifully said. And I love what you say there about that balance of, and wherever we come in from, there are skills to be
Oh,
developed and honed and deep, and we're always learning. We're still going. We're still learning. Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Oh my God.
Hmm.
I'm still learning every day. I'm learning. Oh my goodness
That's
gracious.
right. That's right. I'm curious, you've mentioned the healers that come to you and your students and the mentoring that you do. I wonder if there's any highlights, maybe especially early ones, where you had this aha moment, like, wow, this is going to be hugely impactful. Initially we discover it for ourselves, but maybe those first moments, those first students you had that had these realizations that just, you knew that this is what you were meant to do to develop with other people.
I can't say that there was like one or a big one. It was just watching the evolution of a student waking up. and seeing indeed that watching them go deeper, right? Because remember, I just talked about the simplicity of playing a bowl. So now we start with the simplicity of the bowl, and then with guidance, now we begin to go deeper. And it's seeing these awakenings that happen as the student begins to go to deeper levels. That is orgasmically turns me on, because I know that it's not about them going out and serving the world through sound, although that's certainly an aspect of it. But so much, for me, more important, it's the personal transformation. Because as each of us does our mm, does our I don't know, I hate all these words, our journey, our coming into self-inquiry and self-introspection, and sitting inside and being with ourselves and watching, me as witness, as guide, as facilitator, watching them touch these places inside of themselves that, they maybe haven't touched in decades, and watching the emotion come up, the ahas come up, the realizations, oh, how this has held me back, where, oh, this is the trauma that I've been suppressing for all this time, and just holding the space to be witness to that. That is some of the most profound work I get to do. It's to witness that, and that hasn't changed in its essence for me since I started, but it's changed in the depth, because I've grown through doing the work, but I've also, continued just consistently, looking at my own stuff, paying attention, doing the deep work that's necessary on a very regular basis. We're here to grow as humans. I think sometimes we get a little sidetracked, those of us that are so concerned about being in service and helping. And we see the world around us, we see what's happening with our families, and so the focus becomes on helping, helping, helping. But really, we have to do the inner work. And the more we do the inner work, the greater we are of service. And it's a vibrational thing, because our personal vibration gets more and more clear. And so we begin to resonate a higher, more clear frequency into our orbit. And that alone, without us really needing to do anything else, that can shift the energy around us just by nature of the law of resonance and entrainment. So, here we are, we're doing the work on ourselves, and, you know, the neighborhood starts changing. They say that the great spiritual teachers, and I think I heard this said in connection with the Dalai Lama, that great spiritual teachers have a magnetic field of 25 miles, that the energy that they emanate when they come into a space literally impacts everything within a 20 to 25 mile radius. And most of us don't have that yet. We have the capacity to have that. We have the potential to have that. So when we continue to do this deep work on ourselves, we clear the trauma, we focus our energies and our intention on raising our personal vibration, on connecting with our soul's innate wisdom. We look at being love. We look at um, enhancing, connecting with, deepening, resonating with our own inner light and our inner wisdom. And the more and more and more we do that, the more we vibrate out that. I watched my husband, and my husband's a native Hawaiian healer, and he had been going through a health challenge for like the last 7, 8 weeks and ended up being hospitalized. And I watched, just because he is who he is, I watched particular nurses in who were his caregivers shift from the time we first brought him in and to the time he left. And he had 2 stints because of what he was going through. He had 1 week, and then he had a couple of weeks where he had been discharged, and they had another week when he was back. And the week that we had brought him back, it was like the whole place was, "Hi, James. What are you doing here? We're gonna take good care of you." And it was like I'm standing back and I'm going, OMG. And this is how that vibration of just who you are, literally, you know. And he wasn't caring for people. He wasn't doing his work as a healer. He was on the receiving mode. At the same time, his personal vibration is so beautiful that it resonates out and makes a difference in the lives of those people he touches. And we all have that. We all have that. So that's why it's so important that when we're doing healing work, that we really put ourselves at the top of the list on a regular basis for, because of that. And also just not to burn out. You know?
Right, exactly. And gosh, yeah, I think a lot of people, whether they're in this work or not, have felt that energy from someone. They might not necessarily connect the dots while they're feeling that type of shift or that type of energy, but there is a ripple effect.
It
And
is.
gosh, yeah, yeah, what a beautiful story. So I'm curious about the crystal bowls. And for you, that's obviously been a huge passion. Whoever's watching the video here can see the the beautiful bowls behind you, and I'm sure that's just a few. And I know you use other instruments as well. But what do you find about the crystal bowls and perhaps the alchemy bowls in general to be so transformative and a a perfect tool for this type of work we're discussing? What is it about the bowls?
I would have to say, it's the quality of their harmonics, and it's the purity of the sound. So, I do play a number of instruments. Um, I am passionate about therapy harps, and I work with them extensively for myself as a singer. Um, I love what they can do. I just I just bought a hand pan. I'm like, I'm just learning how to play that, and I'm like, whoa, this is so much fun. And I have percussion instruments. I work with the tuning forks. I play keyboards, and I would have to say every single instrument has its own magic. And every single instrument nourishes us and feeds us through their particular quality of its resonance and its sound. And so each one of the instruments evokes something. And when we reach for it, you know that it's needed. With all instruments, I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about, you know, actually, I think I was thinking about it this morning. And really, really early in the morning, I got up. I wasn't sleep. I couldn't sleep, so I kept going. Oh, you got to go play. You got to go play. So I pulled out some bowls and I was and tuning forks, and I was playing for about an hour at 2:30 this morning. And I was thinking about afterwards when I was done. I was thinking about the elemental qualities of the instruments. So we have wood, and we have metal, and we have air with our air instruments. We have light and space through the bowls. We have the fire that can be created through our passion. We have the earth element through drums and drumming. you know and so when we're feeding ourselves elementally, you know crystalline sound activates the crystalline light body, and it activates and feeds our light bodies and higher chakras than we are used to sensing or feeling on a regular basis. And the bowls take us into those upper chakras, I think, faster than any other instrument. And particularly, and I've played lots and lots of different kinds of crystal singing bowls, but I find that the alchemy bowls by Crystal Tones are by far the best. I have yet to meet a single, and I've played probably all of them that I know of, that I've had access to. I haven't found yet any that match the way that the harmonics come out of their bowls. There's something that is, it's magical, and it takes the listener. And I've seen this over and over and over and over and over again with people that come to me, to bring bowls, because I've been working with Crystal Tones bowls for, I don't know, 20 years at least, probably more, since 2003, right? So 21 years now. And when people come and they play them for the first time, they just go, "Oh my God, I there's nothing like this. Where did this I played bowls by such and such company, such and such company, such and such company, and I come here and this sound is unparalleled." And it is. And is will there come a time when there'll be, somebody else that can match that? I'm sure of it. We're creative human beings, and of course, this isn't to disparage any other bowl that you're playing, you or any of the listeners, because we all come in the absolute rightest place for us. You know, that I didn't start with Crystal Tones bowls. I started with bowls from another company. But once you make that jump, it's like, what just happened? So when I do my concerts or sound healing experiences, I will have 25 alchemy bowls in front of me and 3 or 4 super grades, and they hold a magical space. And but I don't limit myself to them. As far as playing crystal bowls go, yes, I do limit myself to those. I don't play any other crystal bowls, to kind of crystal bowls, but I do incorporate other instruments into my sound healing experiences, crystalline light concerts, I call them. And they, I, because of the elemental energy of instruments, the voice, the harps, the bowls, the flutes, the drums, the hang drums, the tablas, the guitars, the keyboards. It just, the more, as an artist, right? And so now I'm speaking of myself as an artist, you know, I want to take people on a very full and rich journey through sound and song and prayer, meditation. And so, when we're walking, when we're hiking in nature, you know, we have the big pine trees, and we have scrub oaks, and we have flowers that along the way, and we have the dirt of the earth, and we are looking at the sky, and the sun is beaming at us a certain way, and each place we walk into deep forest, and now we walk into an open field, and now we're sitting on rocks overlooking a vast panorama. And this is how I think of music and healing music. It is bringing people into this place where they can touch all of these spaces in hopefully in ways that will bring them into a deeper relationship with themselves.
Right. It can be almost a soundtrack for their journey wherever they go. You can really kind of
Exactly.
set the scene for, and of course, everybody has their own experience. That's a really great point that you brought up in your book. And I think why alchemy bowls in particular, because they are so complex, I don't know that you can necessarily label a bowl, this is this frequency for this particular thing. Like this
And
note is for the root. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about, I guess perhaps it's a bit of a misconception, but really a standardized way that bowls are often sold, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was standardized early on in the industry. I suspect that it was and I don't know if this is true or not, so you're just getting my HO, right? I suspect that it was a really great way to market. You took the notes of the natural major Western scale or the natural minor A minor scale. So you either did it C D E F G A B, or you did it A B C D E F G if you're looking at A minor, and you said, here, you need 7, right? And so and then they established C as being the root. Well, yeah, all musicians know C major is our starting place for everything. In terms of in Western music, this is not true for East Indian music, which I think is probably the most complex musical, what would you call it, musical culture in the world, is in East Indian music. But that's another, I can go on a big tangent on that, but I won't. But in our Western culture, we pretty much start every kid starts piano on the note C. I've got a piano in front of me right now, so I'm looking for my C. So C, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, si, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. And we start with C. So I think what happened in the world of crystal bowls is that they were like, great, C, okay, C, root. Happy day. Root, sacral, solar plexus. We just went up. Now, it makes sense. We'll start the root with C. And then we just move up from there. It's so interesting because if you're playing in East Indian music, more often than not, it gravitates in the A flat, B flat range, D flat, A flat, B flat. And I don't know, I can't tell, but it depends on the voice. It's really depends on the comfort of the voice for the individual, what key you want to sing it or play it, period, the end. But we did some kind of peculiar things in around bowls in Western culture. And so we assigned the importance of having 7 bowls, and we assigned the chakras to the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And it stuck. And we've got it now. And it's not going to change anytime soon. And, does it have to? Um, I don't think it has to change, but it's a very limiting structure, in my personal opinion. To say that every C bowl is a root chakra bowl, to me, is crazy. It makes absolutely no sense, because I could hand you, 10 alchemy crystal singing bowls, and each one of them, let's say one, all C's. Let's say one was a Tibetan quartz bowl, one's an aqua aura gold, one's a ruby, one's a rose quartz, one's a citrine, one's a diamond, one's a this, blah, blah, blah. And I play that for you, and you will feel it in your body 10 different places. And it doesn't make sense to me to label it because, especially with alchemy bowls, as you so wisely pointed out, there's so many different qualities going on. The note itself, the layers upon layers of harmonics, which are all the notes that we don't hear, and the notes that we do hear, these very refined higher pitches that are occurring that are sounding simultaneously to what we know as the fundamental note, the C, in this case of our discussion, the C. And so then we have these layers upon layers upon layers of exquisite harmonics. Then we have factoring in the color, we have factoring in the metal, we have factoring in the alchemy. Is it, what kind of crystal stone or mineral or gemstone is present in that. So and then the biggest factor of all, the intention and the energy of the person who's playing it. Because if you hand that same, let's just take one crystal bowl, and you hand that to 10 different people, you are going to have 10 different experiences of that sound. It's really, for me, I say this all the time to my students, there is an alchemy that is created between the bowl player and the bowl itself, and that becomes the most important factor. That is the number one alchemy that we should be considering. So that's my thinking on it.
Very well said. Yeah, and just to encourage people as they're getting into it, just to explore, be
Oh,
curious.
oh
How does
my,
it make you feel? You know?
that's exactly it. Couldn't say
Yeah,
it better myself.
right. Yeah.
Feel it, sense it. Are you in resonance with it? What happens inside your body and your spirit when you're connecting, when you're playing? Where's the place where you just go, oh, and where's the place where it makes you uncomfortable? That's a place to look at just as much.
Very good point. Right. And not to resist
Yeah.
tension, just to be curious about it. Oh, where's that coming from? Yeah.
Tension or color,
Mm.
right? I mean, for the longest time, people didn't want black bowls.
They're pretty popular now, though, it seems.
They are. Yeah, but there was
Yeah.
like black bowls, it's like,
Mm.
so we don't do that, and but now we do. Thank goodness. Or other colors, that the dark ambers or the browns. People want purple. People want the purples, and they want the clears, and they want the iridescence, and yes. So pay attention to where you're drawn, but also pay attention where you're not drawn. Where you're not drawn, because where is that color vibration not necessarily active in your life? All colors, every single color on the spectrum has its own resonant frequency.
I love that. Yeah, thank you for that. Just beautifully said. So, what's next in your evolution, right? You have music going on, created all the time, and your programs, your trainings. What is coming forth for you?
Well, I am getting ready to release a new album. It's coming out next year. We've had it in the can for a while. We are just kind of waiting. I think, I think it's the right timing now. Been sitting on that. So we have that coming out. It'll be the follow-up to Jewels of Silence. This is Jewels of Silence 2. So we have that coming out. And then I have this beautiful program called Celestial Alignment for Healing that we've been beta testing. It's now out of the beta test phase, and it's going to be coming available for the general public, and we'll probably be offering it initially through working specifically with practitioners. We've seen tremendous amount of success with this program. It's we created it as an 8-week program, but we're adding 2 more week modules onto it and some more new music into it. It's a multimedia experience of sound healing. I wanted to create something. The download that I was given was to create something that would help people experience sound healing when they couldn't get to live sound healing. that there was a space there, and it wasn't a space simply to be filled by healing music, or, because I've certainly filled that space and others have done brilliant jobs filling that space. But I wanted a program that would take people in a very intentional, guided way through a period of time where uh, they could focus on their personal healing, whether emotional, mental, physical, spiritual. We've had people come off medications. We've had people, their cancer markers were eliminated or dropped. I'm not supposed to say the C word, so erase that. People with migraines coming off them, going into the hospital to come off their medications because as a result of what they were doing, they found that they didn't need it anymore. We've had people move out of depression into waking up every day feeling that everything is possible. So it's just been this continual surprising delight at what this program can do. And so it's this combination of music, video, live teachings with me and my husband in this group setting. It's called Celestial Alignment for Healing. So we have that in the book, and I'll be at the Yin on Fire Festival in St. George, Utah in September, and I'll be a keynote speaker at the Global Crystal Bowl Symposium in Cambodia. And that's just for now. So we got a lot going on. Come play
Amazing.
with us. Yeah. And
And
Rich,
the adventure continues.
yeah, come to the retreats. We're doing all kinds of stuff. So
Wow. Fantastic. And I wanted to let the listeners know that you are gifting them an experience that I'm going to guide them to. It's the Meditation on the Golden Light of Healing, award winning. Would you let us know a little bit about what that is once they experience it?
well, that's the primary meditation for celestial alignment for healing.
Oh,
And so we've been giving that out. We've watching people have amazing experiences with this. It was the number one guided meditation. It won a gold award for a guided meditation for the Coalition for Visionary Resources this year. Uh, so super proud of that. But just doing this meditation, if you take it and you gift it to yourself as a way of working with that sound and vibrational healing, the bowls are in there, my voice is in there. Let them take you where you need to go. If you work with it consistently, you'll see some really wonderful shifts.
fantastic. Thank you so much for gifting that to our audience. And I look forward to everybody's experiences with that. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been really just a pleasure, and what a beautiful flow getting to know you and talk with you. And thank you so much for your work as you continue to share your gifts with us all.
You're
Thank
welcome, Natalie. Thank you for having me. Much
you.
love.
Thanks so much for tuning into this 5-year anniversary episode of Sounds Heal Podcast, sponsored by the Om Shop and Spa. You can keep up to date with what's coming up next at soundshealstudio.com. You can follow and check out things at Facebook, Sounds Heal Studio, Instagram at Natalie Brown, Sounds Heal, on YouTube, on the Sounds Heal Studio channel. And thanks again for supporting this podcast. Be well and stay tuned.